Mantras, Mandalas, and Meaning, the podcast at Savvy and Spirited. This podcast is a companion to our monthly workshops, Mantras and Mandalas. Each workshop is self guided and it comes with a meditation, a workbook, and you create a mandala at the end. This podcast is for Sasha and I to go through the workshops together, what we learned, how we felt, how we transformed, what benefits we got out of them, and also to share our mandalas. So, without further ado, we're just going to jump right in. So, Sasha, how are you today?
I'm great. I'm all excited to do this. And
Good.
share mandalas especially.
Yeah, I know. We'll leave the best part to the end or the most fun part to the end. So,
Yeah.
what we're going to do for the podcast today is we're going to go through the workbook and we're going to review the questions and exercises in the workbook and see what our responses are, what we got out of it, ask each other some questions about that, perhaps maybe what our biggest breakthroughs were, and we're just going to see what happened during the month. So,
Perfect.
Sasha, do you want to start with the first question? I'll let you ask the first
Yeah,
question.
sure. Okay. Perfect. So I have him here. And the first question that was also part of the journal that we were doing is when you speak, do you think about your intention purpose in sharing the information you are about to share?
Um,
And were you doing this before? Are you doing this now? How did it change?
Not enough is my first answer. I'm not going to say not at all, but not enough. And I think, and this is a really interesting observation, in a professional setting, we tend to think more before we speak. And then I notice, so at work, I'll think more before I speak. But at home, I think we tend to just speak without necessarily, with people that we're more familiar with. Even with friends, I feel like the closer a person is to me, the less I think about, because, and I was asking myself, I was thinking, why? Why do I do that? And I think there's a weird thing that happens when we're really close to people. We tend to think that their brains and our brains are kind of connected and they think like we do, and we forget that they don't. So, yeah, my answer is I do a lot more now. I definitely think about my intention before I speak a lot more now after the workshop.
Right.
Before I didn't. It wasn't like not at all, but not enough for sure. How about
And
you?
why do you think was that? I have one question. Is
For
like,
sure.
why do you think like it was just because you feel like that you're like, but okay, we know you said you know why it might happen because you feel like you're like your brain and the person's brain is one, but maybe other are like more internal or outside reasons. Why do you think we're like that? Because I think it's a common thing.
I think we're like my short answer is I think we're generally self-centered,
Mm-hmm.
right? When do we speak? I taught communication. I still teach communication for over 20 years. I
Yeah.
teach it a lot less now, but I still have taught it for 20 years. And why do we communicate? Usually it's the who, what, when, where, why, how. I always used to tell my students, if you want to know, all those questions, think about your mom when you come home. Who are you with? Where were you? Why did you go with them? How are you going to get there? Like, we always are talking in those terms, right? Usually sharing information. And then sometimes also because, particularly for this month, we were talking about sharing sensitive information. So, just a quick
Yeah.
review, the mantra for this month was, when sharing sensitive information doesn't uplift me, I keep it close to my heart. And that's coming from the yogic principle of Bramacharya, which means saving some of your energy. Because when you share something and you get a bad reaction or you're disappointed, you lose energy or you waste a lot of energy. So that's where this month's workshop was mostly focused. So going back to that, to answer your question, why do I think we don't? I think with the people closest to us, we assume they're supposed to be happy for us. We assume they're going to understand us. We assume,
Mm-hmm.
like, they might want the best for us, But I think their idea of what the best for us could be X, and our idea for what the best for us is Y. And to answer exactly what you were asking, why? Because for some reason, I feel like they're going to see information that's dear to me or special to me through my eyes. And I forget.
Mm-hmm.
Like one silly example, when I wanted to move to Arizona, I know many years ago my mom was thinking of moving to Arizona when my brother had asthma. And I told her, and I thought she would be happy for me. And I forgot that she's a person who can get very afraid of like dangerous things. And all she told me
Mm-hmm.
was about snakes and spiders and how I'm going to die and it's too hot and how what am I doing and I must be crazy. Now she's happy that I'm in Arizona. But the first response was, where are you going? What are you doing? Why are you moving there? And I was
Mm-hmm.
shocked. But I think in her mind, the idea of Arizona is fine. The reality of Arizona is not fine. And it didn't occur to me because that germaphobe, worrier element of hers became activated when it became real.
Mm-hmm. That's actually so true. That's so true. Yeah, because we kind of assume, maybe we kind of forget about the complexity of other people's minds and their perception of everything. And that's why we like believe that if once we saw this particular perspective on something, that it's just this perspective, because and the person will react this certain way,
Yeah.
and when actually it's always there is more to it. Okay, that's great. And what did help you? Like, what maybe any particular, let's say, takeaway from this month, that what is maybe a routine or any kind of inner process you got as a habit or
As a
like a
habit
trick?
is to try to put myself in the shoes. So again, if we were to do this every single time we communicated for every single thing we communicated, it would be very exhausting and tiring. But again, I'm just going to stress this is for if you have any information that could be sensitive to you. So let's say I want to share something that made me extremely happy. What I'm trying to picture is from the other person's point of view, how they're hearing what I'm saying and knowing their personality. I try to guess, an educated guess, how they're
Mm-hmm.
going to receive that. And then I might think about, well, maybe there should be a good time for a specific person to tell them, or they should be, who is it? Who will understand that information better? If I'm extremely
Mm-hmm.
happy and it's a first rush of emotion, or extremely sad, or I'm in like the throes of the emotion, then I definitely want to pick the right person. For some things, the right person might be my mom or you or a girlfriend. For other things, it might be my husband. But if I pick poorly, then what I end up
Yeah.
doing is shocking and surprising the wrong person. And I'm so excited and emotional that if they let me down, then I end up being angry at them. And it's not maybe their fault.
Yeah, that's so true. Yeah, I agree. So about my experience,
Yeah.
I was doing a little bit of thinking before the whole workshop, and just because, let's say, I got the experience of regretting, not like regretting the like in this huge way, but just saying, oh, I shouldn't have. Too often, like in my life, especially with my family, because it's not like in terms of lying to them, but like, okay, it's better I should have told later, or I should have told differently, or shouldn't have told at all, because what was the point? But I wasn't packing this much later when I faced the consequences,
Yeah.
or yeah, and I had to solve another problem because I said something, usually because I said something, or I was angry at them, offended because they didn't support, they didn't understand, and it was so tiring for me that at some point in my life I kind of naturally came to this, like, okay, they don't have to know all, like, 100% of every step. Like, I'm not 2 years old, and it's also hard for them maybe, and I mean, I should kind of take care of them as well by kind of packing it
Yeah.
in the simplest way possible, and
Yes.
just put it, because if nobody's dying and I can't solve it myself, I should take the time with my emotions, and then I will deliver whatever it is.
Yeah.
But with the workshop, obviously, as it was, like I said, an intention. Okay, we're practicing this for a month. I was more accurate, and I was more careful and more attentive to it. And now I think it's like 90% of the time, or like literally, that I have just that process becomes so quick that I don't really think about it. I don't sit in like, okay, let's like meditate. What should I say? Or put a piece of paper. I just it's just like a habit, a skill that it happens quickly, and I already can go through all the stages and like get to the outcome, to the result. Like should I or should not, and how. And it has become much easier for me to communicate, and
Mm-hmm.
also achieve a more effective communication, and not blame it on somebody like, oh, you didn't get me correctly. Like, I am perfect at talking, because now I
Mm-hmm.
know I structure it as much, and if I don't get the outcome I want, I go first to myself, what did I say, maybe like wrong for that person to understand. Not in general
Right.
it's wrong, but like for that person, like the message like is not the right one. And that's why I kind of get a more organic and healthy communication with everybody, even with like family members that challenge me all the time.
Right.
Now it's kind of, I got also the intuition, and I can really like flow with them, because it's better for me, because I feel more put together and in control of my life, because my thoughts, my ideas, because I decide whether I want to face the consequences of what I say, their emotions. If I know the person is emotional, okay, like, do I want it? Can I handle it? In how many, what is the percentage of it? Like, how bad or like how expressive can it be? And then I kind of feel more in control and more decisive and more with myself on that. That has been a huge, huge takeaway and a huge result for me of this workshop. Like, it really trained me.
I'm glad to hear it. Yeah, sometimes when you read over and you do the exercises in the meditation, it might feel like, oh gosh, this is like a lot of thinking or a lot of work. And it actually isn't as much if you, that's why it's designed. It's about 15 minutes a day, and it doesn't have to be every day. So when I say 15 minutes a day, it's sort of the average. Some days you might not do anything, some days you might do more, whatever it is. But there's something very interesting about raising your consciousness and then doing a little bit of meditating about 3 times a week. It's I use the term, you can't unsee it. Like, you see it often enough and you see it well enough that you can't unsee it, which doesn't mean you'll always be perfect, but sometimes I'll catch myself like halfway through going to communicate something with someone, and I'll like pull it back a little, and because I forgot to consider beforehand, right? So I think one of that's really what should come out of the workshop, and I'm glad to hear it, that your consciousness is elevated around that, that you actually feel like, oh, okay, I have some more control over how my information is received. I want to take a second and make a very important distinction. Sometimes people are mean. Like, sometimes it's not your choice or your delivery. So I just want to make that distinction, that sometimes the feedback that you
Yeah.
get
The razor blade
is
that is on the green
mean
handle
spirited,
currently
or it
is
really
Your
was maybe
old
the
one.
wrong
my old one.
person
Thank you.
to share it with. And that's a little bit of another story. But the purpose of this workshop is for us to be able to analyze our part of it. And if you do your best on your part, then it's much easier to understand what went wrong on the other half, right? If
Yeah.
something does go wrong. So I found that. So I'm going to move on to the next thing, which is patterns. Did you notice any patterns in the way that you used to communicate
Mm, I would go,
before the workshop?
yeah, definitely. Yeah, because as the main purpose was the sensitive information, and maybe we should a little bit define more what is sensitive information, what it can be. And for me, it was actually that usually when you say the word sensitive, it's something very like, I don't know, somebody died, right, or something, or somebody has a like very bad disease, so something really like that. However, it's actually like it can be almost every information, but not to every person. Like to me it's not sensitive, to somebody it is.
Yeah, just to
And
interrupt you
sometimes,
there quickly,
yeah,
because it's an important point to define what is meant by sensitive information. Something that could be sensitive to you is not sensitive to me, and something that's sensitive to me could not be sensitive to you. And I think it's very situational and individual, right? Like,
yeah,
so for example, if it could be a very small thing, but because it's something that you're working on, like, for example, asking an opinion about something as simple as a hair color. For somebody, if they have an association with that, or they were trying to achieve something, or, that might, for me, I've changed my hair color several times. I don't really care. I know I can buy, now I like this one, so I'm keeping it, but I went through many. I wouldn't be sensitive. Like I had my mom, just a simple example, say to me, when I was younger, it would have hurt me. Now, no. She's like, oh, I really don't like that color on you. What? Not this one, but a different one. She's like, I don't know why you picked that color. You look terrible. You look old and you look washed out. And if I were younger, that would really upset me. Right. So, but now that doesn't upset me at all. So it doesn't have to be, like you said, a death. It could be something as
yeah,
silly, depending. And I say silly in quotes because it's not always silly, as a hair color or a new shirt. It could be a promotion at work. It could be anything. That the best way to define it is if you stop and think about, if I share this information and a person gives me a crappy response, how am I going to feel? Am I going to get really upset? And if yeah,
yeah,
then be careful. Choose wisely.
yeah. Absolutely. Also about the situation, like the outside conditions, like is that person having, let's say, a bad day or a good day? Is it the time? And for me, I guess the main pattern was that I'm usually more like introverted when it comes to bad situation or bad feelings and emotions. However, when I'm super happy, I tend, because I'm pretty expressive, and when I care about the person, like I really want to share. Like if I
Right.
care and that I know the person like usually supports me, like yeah, I need to share. Like here, like leave everything, sit down and pay attention to me. However, sometimes I go and I tend to be very pushy about that. Like literally put this emotion into the person. Like I guess they can, maybe you can feel it even physically. And
So you
sometimes
want them to
I
show the same level of emotion, and if they don't, you're
yeah,
disappointed. Okay.
I'm
Got it.
disappointed, but like a child, because that's
Mm.
more like of a child in me that feels like, oh, but she doesn't support me enough. Or I do this, I don't get the expected in my head level of the excitement, because I didn't sit with myself and kind of and like really
You guys fighting again?
did the work of, okay, how, like what is the
No,
appropriate
the
the excitement
cats.
for this person,
Right.
like how emotional the person is, because they can, like the love language, maybe they show their love and care in different ways. For me,
Right.
it includes parents. It's not only about romantic stuff, also friends. And what is the, what are they going through in their life? So how should, it's not you should keep it to myself if I want to share, but how, maybe how should I share it? Or the important thing, okay, I share for the person, it's fine, but they don't give me the reaction I expected. And then if it's an idea, for example, I get the self-doubt because they didn't give me that portion. They didn't give me that drug that was craving. Is kind of, so
To say, oh
I,
my
so the
God,
idea,
Sasha, that's an amazing idea. They're like, oh, that sounds, and you're like, wait, it's an
yeah,
amazing idea.
yeah,
Yeah.
or like, oh wait, this is amazing. And they're like, okay, yes, great, go do this. And I expected, I don't even know what I expected, but it's not enough for me. And then I go like, oh, but what if not? And I, because she just reacted, they actually reacted well, but in my head, well, it's not enough or whatever. I wasn't prepared, let's say, because I didn't take a moment with my emotions. I put the emotions on them, and that's the thing, that when I'm emotional, I'm very vulnerable. And I came there and something went wrong, and now I go with a self-doubt instead of
Mhm.
being more
That's
inspired.
exactly what I'm talking about. That's exactly what I mean by sensitive information. And When it comes to, I noticed when it comes to anything, like you and I are both very experimentative, let's say. Like we'll try, we're adventurous. We're like, let's try this, let's try this, see how it goes. You know, we're on the positive side. And it reminds me of a saying, there are two types of people: people who have a solution for every problem, and people who have a problem for every solution.
Yeah.
So now, if I'm thinking of an idea or a way to achieve something, I'm very careful about, okay, who am I sharing this with? Because there's some people who will see the negative in everything, and then you share it with that person and they really bring you down, right? They're looking at everything that could go wrong, and you start, you know, and this is where we also have to calibrate ourselves. And sometimes they're right, like sometimes they point out things that we didn't think about that we should consider. But I think it's just the overall energy or attitude, and we're going to get that to that later, about
Yeah.
people.
Yeah,
So
just because the person maybe has never experienced that. So even if the person is a positive one, let's say, and they
yeah.
won't see anything negative, they won't just give you that level of excitement because they have never ever experienced that. So they just don't know how it is. Like when I talk to my dad, for example, like, oh, I'm learning Italian, like that's one more language. Whoa, he speaks two languages, Russian and Ukrainian, which basically for them both mother tongue. And he's proud of me because he knows it's cool in his brain, and he tells me, oh yeah, go ahead. And it's very important for me because like, oh, my dad
Mm.
supported me. However, if I want to go deeper, I'm most likely will come to you, for example, because you speak a bunch of languages. You know, you'll be like, yeah, let's like, and you know the Spanish is
Amazing.
similar.
Yeah, yeah,
And we're gonna
yeah.
get this little like 15-minute talk about that with my dad. I'll get just this like comment, a positive one, but it's not gonna be this outburst of energy where we're like, yes, it's so great, just because my dad has
Hmm.
never experienced that. He's not
Right.
mean, he loves me, he supports me, but he has never experienced that. He doesn't understand the language, like, or how it is to learn a foreign language. For him it's something like, okay, I know it's great, but I don't
It
feel it
feels like an
because
explosion of achievement. And, you
yes.
know, when you do that and you're like, you went from zero, you didn't know one single word in that language, to like 6 months or 8 months later, you're communicating and you understand it. And it's something you have to experience to understand. So yeah, you're right. Like when you told me that you're learning Italian and you could communicate in Italian and you're fine with it, I was so happy for you, because I know I did that when I was your age with Spanish. And I remember, it's not only the language, it opens up a whole world, a whole culture. We have a saying in Serbian that you're worth, for every language you speak, you're worth a whole other person, because it comes with a whole worldview. And I studied cultural anthropology. So when you tell me, I'm, you know, over the moon excited. Oh, wow, you learned another language. That's amazing. But your dad's like, cool. Because
Yeah, he does. He
he
can
doesn't
find it
know.
in more phrases. Yeah, because it's like comment on a book you never read. Like you cannot say much. You can say, yeah, it's nice, but you're limited in your vocabulary to actually describe it, right? Because you have
Right.
no idea.
Okay, so we're going to move on to question 3 and exercise 3. We'll kind of cover them together so we can move on a little more quickly to get to the mandalas and have time to be able to look at them. Question 3 was about the people that you most often speak to on a regular basis, and taking a minute to do a little survey of how they make you feel. Like when you talk to certain people, do they take more energy from you, or do they give you more energy, or maybe a combination? So did you find that helpful? Like just taking a minute to identify and realize.
Yes, absolutely. I wasn't doing that much before, but during the workshop, I started paying more attention. And yeah, actually, I have much more energy right now because I didn't realize that it impacts me so much. Who I communicate and how, because again, if I bring up a sensitive topic to the wrong person in the wrong way, in the wrong time, I feel so drained. The person most likely feel very irritated by everything. And then, like, if I cannot be productive, or I don't want to go out anymore, or I don't want to go
Right.
in, I don't want to go to the gym. And it's like, and then I have to really put even more energy to bring back my mood. And it's so like it's so not cool. That's why I started to really like being picky about the time,
Mm-hmm.
the person, and everything. So it's the whole concept that actually like came together for me. And yeah, right now it's like I did have a list. I know that you did like your list, literal on paper, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I do. I keep it in my head because yeah, it's like I just kind of know because I told you that this workshop made me very automatic for this thing. So I really like it because I can always have it by myself. Like I will never forget it, and that's why now
Did you
I'm very.
did you feel like the meditation portion of it helped it sort of sink in really? Because when you meditated on it,
Yes,
yeah, that's
I
why I
like.
designed it that way.
Actually,
Mhm.
like as you know, I told you before that I'm not a big fan of meditation for myself. Like I think it's an awesome thing, but I always struggle. And there are only a few meditations that kind of work, and I really have to be feeling something
Mhm.
negative to go to the meditation and feel better. So like if I'm in zero or I'm good, I don't do this then because my brain has a whole flow of thoughts and it never stops. I'm a woman. It's like it's
Yeah.
impossible for me. However, I think as I've been doing this consistently, I got much better. And actually, even if my brain was like thinking and talking to me, it was the topic. Like I didn't think about watering plants or
Well,
doing laundry.
it's a little bit different kind of meditation. So just to clarify this for you and then for other people watching.
Yeah.
So just meditation, there is a misconception that meditation is only successful if you can make your mind stop.
Yeah.
And that's actually not true because your mind is there to stay aware and thinking to keep you alive, much like your
Mm-hmm.
lungs breathe to keep you alive. So you have as much of a chance to stop your mind from thinking as you do your lungs from breathing. The point of meditation is to be able to keep your focus in a particular
Yeah.
place, right?
Yeah.
So if it's the most, let's say, classic transcendental meditation, it's just on the breath, on the breath. You see a thought come up, you let it go, you don't hang on to it. That's one type. But this meditation is not that type of meditation. This is more a reflective meditation where
Mm-hmm.
it allows you space and time to guide you in analyzing and reflecting while you're in a calm state. So it may, I mean, everyone's different. I think it probably will help because the workshop is designed as a combination of things, which is experiential learning. That's what the workbook is for. So you have a question, you have an extra, you think about it, you write about it, and you go back to the journal and you write in the journal several times a month. And before you do your mandala, which we're going to discuss soon, you look at all your writing for the month and then you summarize it. You look for patterns
Yeah.
and you summarize it, right? But the meditation is also kind of asking you to do that, but in a different brain space.
Mm-hmm.
And then the mandala is also asking you to do that, but in a different way. So it kind of takes different learning styles and different modes and kind of meshes them all like this. So they get
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
fixed kind of in your consciousness. It's easier for them to
Yeah.
be fixed into your consciousness.
Yeah. So would it meant that the part where that my mind would be wandering all the time and it would be hard to focus on one thing or like one topic and be like in some frames because literally I
Right.
could be thinking during the meditation about laundry but like as I was doing this consistently I actually got much better at being present. I guess that's the key
Mm,
word, to be present and do the like the thinking, but without going to like those things like of my daily routine that are really unnecessary right now in that moment and stressing out because I'm kind of meditating, but I'm stressing out about the things I have to do in 20
right.
minutes, which is not the point because I have to be with myself and thinking and analyzing on a particular topic, and I got much better. And I think that's why it also improved all the skills and all the other parts and the things we applied during the workshop, like thinking to who you talk and making it quick, and also how you speak, how you receive, what do you keep to yourself, what do you let.
So
out.
it kind of worked together, like all of it. The workbook,
Yeah,
the
yeah,
thinking, the meditate, the exercises, I should say. So the questions to answer, the exercises, the
yeah,
meditation, the mandalas, so everything together as a package. Yeah, that
yeah.
was supposed to be. And same with me. I mean, I started to now when I see a person, because I wrote it down, I looked it over several times, and now when I see certain people, I kind of see a negative or a positive over their head. You know how some people see auras? Now, when I see a person, I'm like, wait, like that person for this subject is going to drain me. Maybe I have no
Mm-hmm.
choice. I have to share for whatever reason. And then I'm prepared differently. So now I feel like I have almost like a little pop up or like an Iron Man when Jarvis is
Yeah.
like gives him an analysis, it's like a quick pop up and I can go, okay, okay. And now I know how to deal, right? So
Yeah.
it helped me do that. And I think that's another benefit. So that pretty much wraps up all the questions, I think, in the workshop. I'm looking through my
Mm-hmm.
notebook. I'm still old
Yeah.
school. I'm on the computer all the time, so I like to write on paper occasionally.
That's good.
Are you ready
So, for the mantras,
for the mandalas?
mantras, mandalas, sure,
That's
yeah,
yeah.
obviously.
It's
I've been waiting.
I know. My husband was laughing at me because when I'm trying to do the videos, I'm like the monthly mantra meditate. There's so many
Yeah,
M's. It looks
yeah.
good on paper, but it takes a minute to remember what's what because it's all with an M. Ready?
So, yeah, I'm ready. Yeah. Are we doing this simultaneously?
Yeah, on three.
Okay,
But
let me make
get
sure that.
ready because you're sharing screen. I'm
Yeah, digital. Can you enable me to share my screen because it's disabled?
yes. Hold on, wait. I think you can now. Try.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, I'm ready. I'm ready to click.
Ready? Okay.
Yeah.
I have to make sure this is right set up. Okay. One, one,
Two.
two,
Yeah. Two.
three.
Three.
I'm gonna wait for your screen.
Is it there? Yeah. I think it was perfect timing, right?
Good timing. That's beautiful. I really love that. That is really, really beautiful. I love the
Yeah,
color.
I'm already amazed by the thing because I know that you painted it yourself, and oh my god, that's so beautiful. That's so, and I want to hear the story behind it because it looks very interesting to me, like the
Thank
concept
you.
of it.
Yeah, I'll explain more in a second. I want to hear about yours first. So tell me
Okay,
what
so I'm gonna
inspired
zoom it.
these colors and everything here.
So the colors. Basically, I always associate myself more with pink.
Mm,
It's just a part of me because I just understand that okay, I have a lot of pink things, and I feel comfortable. Like I don't know, it's like you look at the color and I'm like, yeah, that's it. And as this bright pink is more like this badass, confident energy, and also me being very emotional, and me as we were talking, like putting people like saying, yeah, listen to me, get the
so
emotions, get
pink is
excited, and be
loud and you and emotional
yeah,
and
like
just raw you. Yeah.
yeah, like you see me from the space and here apparently. And then the other color on the left is more
Mm,
like a soothing, like calm, and it's also very natural color, like of a
yeah, it's
sand or
beautiful.
something.
Ochre.
I think in
Yeah.
Arizona you have a lot of them. Of it, so
Yes,
it's
Arizona is pretty much that color, basically.
yeah, and kind of for me personally, it's something like peaceful, something like
Mm-hmm.
sand, that flows and it's kind of calming. And in between there is this balanced color, is kind of orange. That is actually the mix of these two polar, in this case,
Colors,
polar
yeah.
colors. And I guess that's also the part where the workshop kind of brought me into this whole thing that now I do get my polar sides, but I also have the connection between them, and I can choose where I want to be. So yeah, it's kind of very philosophical, but that's how I felt because I was thinking of why it caught my eye and why I wanted to put it
I
particularly like in
love the
these colors.
colors. I think it's beautiful. The pink and the
Thank you.
transition through the orange and ochre, and it
Yeah.
makes so much sense the way you described it.
Thank
It's
you.
a
So,
good
and
visual
then,
reminder. Like that's why I love mandalas so much and art so much and learning because picture speaks 1,000 words. And when you explain it to me, then I always see that. I see what you realize. I see how you see yourself, you know?
Yeah, that's true. So then go and I'm gonna zoom in so you can see. This one in the middle, that's like, first of all, is the word and this the letter I, which is me, basically, right in the middle, because like after this workshop, as I said, I felt put together and in control. Like I could make a choice of whether I want the reaction to receive, or to, if I want to present some kind of reaction, to share the information. So I was in full control, even of the reaction of the other person, because I decided whether to trigger the person to say something and how I say it. So that's why, like, it's the main thing, like, because I start from myself and everything starts with me. Also in Roman style, it's this is the number one, which
One,
is
yeah.
goes a bit to the, yeah, to the concept of self-care and self-love, and putting yourself first as well, because yeah, everything starts with you, because you can decide. Again, you can
Mm-hmm.
decide and you can change. And also sharing sensitive information and receiving it, as we talked before, like sharing your goals is, do you want to hurt yourself or don't you want to hurt yourself? So it's self-care at some point, because like I
That's true.
think
Yeah.
of whether I want to. Then the petals around are some keywords that I just associated myself and like this workshop and the whole experience with, like love, mindfulness, awareness, emotions, beautiful, and all of this. So that's kind of the care is also here, positivity. So it's all about like how I feel and what I want to bring to the world and receive from it, or like what I want to convert it into. Like if I get a better reaction, I can get maybe experience from it, or I can get
Right.
more awareness from it. So it goes both ways. It's like not one way street, it's both ways. And yeah, that's
Yeah,
kind of
what
in
I
what
find interesting, and I see in your mandala too, is the workshop opened one very particular door about, let's say, sensitive information, but opens so many other doors, like so many other little
yeah.
realizations, and it's tied to all these other things, but kind of under the same umbrella. So yeah, it's
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah, so also like kindness is here, which, and but also is confidence, because it all wraps up. Like if you, what I didn't mention is that when I speak, I kind of care more about the other person, in the point that I'm like, I present the information and wrap it particularly for this person. So I'm
Right.
like, yeah, I care about you. Like I know how to talk to you and what to tell you, because I care. So now I'm treating you with kindness at some point, and like I really think about you when I am talking to you. And I guess, and that's why I get also more confidence in myself and in you, let's say our relationship, if there is like
Mm-hmm.
any kind of, it's not a stranger. And even with a stranger, it's an act of kindness, like okay, I'm being polite, or like okay, this is a person that I don't know, so I should go with this particular way of talking. Like I'm not just gonna jump there.
Yeah.
Then there are also, these petals are for now free, because I wanted to leave some space for, let's say, exploration, because 1 month is, it's long but it's still short, to know
Mm.
everything and explore every perspective of this workshop, of this mantra. And that's why
Yeah,
this
you might gain
is
the
digital.
habit, but you didn't finish learning.
Yeah, so I can actually, because I was thinking to leave it here, so when I have something or any idea or maybe a quote, word, whatever to associate with it, I would just write it right here. Also, the main concept, why is it digital? Not because I'm lazy. How, but it's
Okay.
first of all, at some point I actually, I'm gonna be honest, I was forced to make it digital because I wasn't in Vienna when I was making it. And I thought, okay, let's make it digital. And then I thought, actually, it's kind of universe, or it's a sign. Of, because then I understood that I want to make it digital because it is edible, and it's also causing, like, not causing, attracting the attention to the digital communication,
Yeah,
because
it's
people feel
edit
more protected.
editable. You can edit it. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
edible, sorry.
yeah, it's okay.
Yeah, my English. Oh, yeah, also that when people talk, the text message, like I send it with a smile, but I don't put an emoji, and you're maybe a bad day, and you receive it that I'm not being angry or I'm being a little bit like bossy, and I was like, I was in my best. But that's why I know emojis are important, because for some people they are important, and I know some friends like I need to put an emoji to make sure. And also like other friends of mine, they know that sometimes they need to put emojis. So Sasha knows that they're not angry and they love me. And that's also kind of the digital communication that is still as important as in person, to make sure and deliver the message correctly.
Actually, you
And
need
then
to
the
be
plus,
more thoughtful with digital to make sure you
yeah,
express emotion, because it doesn't have emotion. So you have to find a way to do it.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And now the last part is, are those quotes or like some words or phrases that I just was thinking about this workshop and kind of a like meditation on it. And this is what pops up in my head. So obviously I can change and add the quotes, like think before you talk. I think that's a takeaway from this workshop. Then treat people with kindness, what I mentioned earlier. Then talk to yourself like you would talk to your friend, because sometimes we are not very
Great point.
like careful sharing the information with ourselves, and we go in a very bad talk with ourselves, and we kind of sort of bitching about it inside, like in our heads, and we have a multiple personas there
That's a very good
talking, and
point too, because we're talking about people outside of ourselves, but sometimes we have sensitive information that we share with ourselves in not the best way.
yeah, and we talk to
Yeah.
ourselves and criticize ourselves, and we like as I said,
Mm-hmm.
self-doubt and all of this, and we're talking about the obstacles in this, and we go to the extreme, oh, you will make it, instead of saying or like thinking of how. But it's more about the mindset, however it's still the inner talk.
Right, right.
Then don't, I think this one's very important, that like don't let your emotions speak for you, is when you're under some emotions, and
That would
it's
be
like
one of my
everything.
favorite ones. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and when you're like when you're having these emotions, which are very, it's a short reaction, however, it's very powerful, because your hormones and all the chemicals in your body, they go off in like one way or another, and you kind of not being sober enough to process it correctly. That's why you should
Totally.
need to
That's
take a
such a
minute.
good word. And a lot of people have written about emotions being intoxicating, that they're like
Yeah,
a drug or a drink, because they take over your better judgment, whether it's
yeah,
sadness or joy or, anxiety or whatever it is. An emotion comes and goes, and if you act on it, sometimes what you do, the consequence can last sometimes a lifetime. So, that
sure.
whole idea about saving energy, thinking before you speak, thinking about what you're sharing, thinking about what the consequence of sharing it and with whom
Look at this guy. He's
is
covered in
really, really
lemurs.
useful, because
Yeah,
you can't put, there's an expression, it says you can't put
Whatever they
the
are.
cat's out of
Whatever
the
they are.
bag. You can't put the, oops, you can't put the
yeah,
cat back in the
That's so
bag,
cute.
yeah,
and that's a very good
absolutely.
observation.
Very cute little
Hmm.
Yeah,
monkeys.
because when you're under emotion, it's like
So
if you take a breath, or like, okay, hold on a second,
Lemurs.
even with yourself, you stop the
Yeah.
process, like you don't,
What,
because
Squawky?
emotion is usually
You
very
can
quick.
ruin your
The
own
feeling
day.
is different.
Yeah, you can ruin
Yeah,
your
like
own day all by yourself. You don't need help sometimes. I know I don't.
oh
Like,
yeah, true,
yeah.
true. And like there's a difference between the feeling and emotion. Like emotion, is something quick. However, if you don't take this like
Yes,
pause, if you don't pause for a second, and you don't sit with yourself, you kind of keep putting the woods into the fire, and you keep like you make this
Totally. You
emotion
spin out of
escalate.
control. Yeah.
Yeah, and you kind but then you should go to the next stage, which is a feeling. And when you sit with the feeling, and then you can unpack it, because emotion is pretty like it's one, and it's
It's
not so easy.
wild.
We
Yeah.
can think.
Emotions are
Yeah,
wild. Feelings are more domesticated.
Oh, what would you
And
do?
then
yeah, that's so true. That's a great
That
metaphor.
panther
Yeah,
is one of the
absolutely. And with the
snugglest,
feeling, you can
cuddlest
really
kitties.
understand yourself,
That
and then
thinks
you
it's a
can
big cat. I've
talk,
seen that
and
one. Its name's
you
Luna.
kind of you're sober, and
And
you're aware of
Luna
the feeling.
is like a big fucking
But
yeah,
dude.
it's like when
totally.
you're
She's
on
a sweet
fire,
and playful and loving as
that's not a
Gabe.
good way.
Oh,
Then like another was like my words,
Luna.
my power. As a
Luna.
or it's also like my
I want one.
information.
It looks like
We
Luna.
can
Maybe it's not
Yeah.
her.
play with this phrase a lot.
Look at how
Basically,
sweet.
don't
Really
give away your
It's
power,
chewing on
right?
it.
Because you can overshare.
No.
You can be more vulnerable
Absolutely.
with people.
Yeah, and one of the things that I wrote in the journal was about that there's a huge trend. There's a huge trend of people oversharing on social media, feeling like, yes, it does take strength. I'm not going to say it doesn't to be vulnerable, but also you have to do it intelligently, and you should really be careful about whom you're vulnerable with and why and how and what result you want. And sometimes it can have a totally opposite, terrible, terrible result. People can end up being bullied, mobbed, you know, go into a deep depression. People have even committed suicide for sharing the wrong information online. So it is extremely important that if you feel that, definitely sensitive information is information that would make you vulnerable.
True.
To share. And I think that's a huge part of the wisdom behind this workshop, that yes, it is brave to share sensitive information. Yes, it is brave to be vulnerable. Yes, it is important to share, but very important with whom and for what purpose. What is it going to uplift you? Is it going to support you, or can it harm you? And what are the chances in the mode that you've chosen? Yeah.
And the other ones here is to observe, and I believe that's important to observe yourself, your feelings, the way you talk, the way you think, what you experience, which emotions and feelings you go through, as much as to do so with other people. Then you kind of just start to understand, and it becomes very natural for you to really scan the person and understand the best way to talk and what to say. So you basically just know how, and it's just great. Another quote is, "A pleasure shared is a pleasure doubled." It's mainly from another topic, but I just think it's also important related to this one, because I mean,
Sasha,
it's always
I'm
good to
gonna
share.
ask you to make your screen. You can read those. It's hard for us to read them too, but so that I can see you. Maybe unshare for now. So when you read the quote, so that I can see you and that we can.
Okay. Stop it. It's here. Yeah. You don't see it anymore, right?
I still see it. I don't see you big yet. You're still sharing. Okay, there you are. Okay, because I want to see your face too when I'm talking to you.
Okay, sorry.
Since you're reading quotes.
And then I'm gonna read. I guess you got the idea.
Big picture. Yeah.
Yeah, so the quote about the pleasure sharing, the pleasure doubled, is that how many times personally I ruined a great experience because I was too quick to speak and nobody was having fun anymore. And then you instantly regret it because you're like, oh my God, I could have said it another way. I could have reacted in the other way. I shouldn't have brought that up. And it goes on and on and on. And that's why, like, usually, it's always great to share a pleasure or any kind of pleasant experience with somebody, but still it's so easy to ruin it with wrong words and wrong, like, the very quick reactions and being, and that's why I thought that it kind of, like, this quote really fits in, because I personally
totally. But it does. It's sensitive information. It could be, the workshop is from our perspective, what's sensitive to us, right? But sometimes it's sensitive, like we don't think, we're in a group of people and we want to share something, and then we realize, oh, that's gonna really upset somebody. I should not have said that. Back to, you're not sensitive about it, but they might be, and you didn't think about it.
The other thing is that when you're so excited and you feel so open to everybody, and you kind of have a hypersensitive humor, and in your head it sounds so funny. You say it, you say it, and then you see the person like just get a poker face, and you understand that it was not funny, or and then you're like, oh, to that person, because he had this experience right now, it's not a good joke. To any other, it would be awesome. But you didn't get the process. You didn't get to think about this, and then it's like you need another hour to recover. And I'm talking
back
from
to the whole principle. So so what I'm really loving about this, I don't want to keep the podcast too long. I think we're going quite long, but which is fine for now. but to keep bringing it back, because we're opening so many doors. One, it's excellent to open all the doors, but then it's excellent to bring it back. It keeps going back to the principle, the underlying principle of energy, like saving energy. And why did I phrase it that way? There was it's exactly what you just said now. It's a very, very specific reason, which is life is very busy. Unfortunately, I wish we had more time, right? And our energy and our time are very, very important resources, especially if we want to have the room and the time to help other people. And what you were talking about was being in a group and being with other people. That we've all had that experience where somebody says the wrong thing and the whole mood just goes boom.
Yeah.
Right? And everybody's energy just leaves.
And you feel so bad.
And sometimes you can recover and sometimes you can't really recover. But the whole idea is just to be aware. And that really helps. It's like, do I need to say this right now? Will it be better or worse if I do? You know? And with that said, it allows you to check in. One of the other, big realizations that I had, and you can tell me if you did too for this workshop, is that a lot of time we talk just because we want a connection, but we're not really sure what result we want. Okay, so we'll take a look at my mandala now, why I did it the way I did.
Masterpiece.
Thank you. So obviously there's a mandala, and the mandala is same, like just a very traditional looking one, right? So I did a few different elements. For me, I summarized the whole workshop. I sat down and I thought, okay, what is the big takeaway, or how can I summarize what I learned? And it kind of went through levels. Like the first one is bond, right? I wanted to be aware when I did that minus sign, plus sign, but also, does a person take energy away or give me energy? But also, what kind of a bond do I want to have with this person? And to be careful about the bond and making sure that I'm preserving it in the way that I communicate, or respecting the nature of that bond. So this first row, you might hear my cat. He's walking in and out, Gabe. This first row is about bonds. The second row is like different directions. The swirls go in different directions, which has to do with intention. Like, what is my intention? What direction do I want what communication to take? What did I intend? The next one is about ego, because it's sort of like more frilly, peacocky kind of lines. I don't know if you can tell because it's sort of further away. They're different designs, right? And I chose each design. When I chose it, it had a meaning for me. And the ones that are a little bit more peacocky feather looking like designs are for the idea of ego, right? That we have an ego, and to check my ego, and also to be aware of that other person's ego in communicating, right? How do we communicate sensitive information? Because sometimes somebody isn't happy for you because they have a sensitive ego. Like I don't know if you've ever shared information with someone and you realize in that moment that they're actually jealous, like they're not happy for you, and then it just turns very bad and it takes a lot of your energy. So trying to be aware of, okay, where is this person's ego at? Like, how do I share with this person? How egoic are they? And then outside of ego, also just the design around, I picked light blue and gold because to me those colors are kind of like heaven, like the divine, that element of spirituality and divinity and sacredness in terms of communication, and the whole idea of keeping spirituality in communication, right? The how. So if I want to be connected, so yoga, I really like the wisdom of yoga. I wouldn't call myself a yogi, but I'm very interested in yoga, and I'm learning a lot about it and practicing it daily. And one of the things that I find is that the word yoga means yoke. So what are you yoking yourself to? What are you tying yourself to? The divine or that moment? So back to what we talked about, the divine helps you take those emotions that are wild things. Like we use the metaphor of, your raw emotion, initial emotion is like a wild, undomesticated animal, and your feelings, you use spirituality or a discipline to put that wildness through, and then they become feelings that are more domesticated, and then you can use your relationship or what relationship you want to have with the universe and yourself as in a spiritual way to sort it out. Then the heart is because it's part of the mantra, you keep it close to your heart. So my heart for you, where you had an eye, which I love, right?
Yeah.
It's as a design element, it's beautiful. It just looks like a white line, but it's also an eye. Central, and this is my heart being central. I made my heart look more realistic because everything is more 3D when it's yours. To remind me, yeah, my heart is 3D, but somebody else's heart is 2D to me. But if they're centered, their heart is 3D. So I have to treat their 2D heart like my 3D heart as well. Like
That's so great. Yeah, I also like that we kind of put ourselves in the middle, both just in different ways, without even talking about it. That's so great.
Yeah, and I mean mandalas are universal, and I think they bring that shape and circle. It organizes your thoughts in a way that makes you feel whole, and that's why I chose mandalas. I really do love them. And then other people say, so I did a heart, a brain, an eye, and a fetus, a child, to be immaturity. So where do our communications, where can they originate from? Immaturity can be from like just raw emotion. You haven't been civilized, you haven't been socialized, and it's usually immature when you're just responding from emotion. To remind me of that. The heart, obviously, we spoke about that. The brain is, am I being more brainy or cerebral? Like sometimes you have to share things emotionally with certain people because they're emotional. Or maybe I need to use my brain a little bit more before and analyze, is this really sensitive? How sensitive is it? Use your brain before you communicate. And then the eyes are the mirror to the soul. So is this sensitive information really sensitive? Like, is it going to, do I need to protect my soul here? Consider your soul. So these are the things, like, to keep my heart happy and growing. I chose sunflowers because they're my favorite flowers. So this is the idea of prospering, right? Like for my heart to be uplifted, flowers grow up, not down usually, right? To be uplifted, my heart to be uplifted and grow flowers, which represent me, sunflowers. I need to consider all these things, and they need to be organized by some spirituality or divinity. So that's where this one came from.
Oh my God, I really adore the concept and the actual piece of art here that you made. That's so beautiful and that's so deep, which is even better.
I love yours too. I mean, this is why
Thank
I
you.
find them, and this is going to bring me to the next thing that we're starting, because now we have a beginning, right? And I always say you have to start somewhere, and this is the where we're starting for Savvy and Spirited's pet project. It's a very big aim, and speaking of sharing sensitive information, and a very big goal is I would love over time to create the world's biggest mantra, not mantra, there I go again, mandala gallery. But with mantras, with actually, they will be organized under mantras. So I didn't totally misspeak. It's mantra and mandala gallery. So I taped the mantra for this month behind here. I wrote it in green and gold, so it doesn't look the best on camera, but you can probably, right? Because I use gold in the picture, so I decided to do that for July 2023 to remind myself in case I forget years from now. I might. When sharing sensitive information doesn't uplift me, I keep it close to my heart. And then music, the music I chose to listen to, and this is very dear to me because my very good friend that I met in university, who I adore, she took me to see an artist, a musician called Lassa de Sela, who sings in Spanish, French, and English. And that was something very close to her heart. She had just gone through like a breakup and she was having a hard time. And she invited me out and she shared why she loves Lassa de Sela. And I got to see Lassa de Sela. So I thought that would be a really good, album or music. It's called The Living Road. So if you've never heard of Lassa de Sela, I'll leave you with this little artistic gift from the workshop. Find Lassa de Sela and her work. She's an amazing artist. But the idea is to have the mandala gallery organized under mantras. So, and under months and mantras, but to have everyone who feels comfortable. If you don't feel comfortable sharing your art, of course you don't have to. It's not a requirement of participating in the workshop. But if you feel like it, there will be a place. And I think it would be beautiful to see, and people can write, like if you want, you can write out. There will be a Facebook page. It's coming soon, probably this week, where you can upload your work. If you want, you can explain why you created your mandala the way you did. You can share your insights from the workshops and, maybe meet people and have these kinds of conversations behind the scenes. You and I do them in front of the scenes.
That's so great. Like, really, thank you so much for putting the work and organizing and creating this awesome project and workshop, because I have done it and it's been so much fun. And I believe that the community that is about to be created is going to be so impactful for all the people of my age, especially. Like, we're going to have the mentoring, the guidance, and this in a spiritual way and a very, like, skilled way as well.
Yeah, the idea is to hide the complexity and the structure of the skill and make it fun and easy, but it's supported with that, from my background from teaching for many years and also my artistic background. I love the arts. And I just can't.
That's very visible, and you're very talented in it. So
thank you. I know. I really, honestly, there's with the arts, they're far more important than people give them credit for, especially lately. And I'll leave you not only with some music, but a book recommendation, Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert. And one of the quotes, I'm going to misquote it for sure, but the gist of the quote was that human beings are creative creatures. And there's a lot of pain and suffering caused when we don't actually admit that and engage in some kind of creativity. The point of art is not necessarily to become a world famous or recognized or professional artist. Art is the way that we can, without words, because words limit us, access, and this is what art therapy is about, is accessing your subconscious through these different media, whether it's sculpting, painting. You could sculpt your mandala if you wanted to. Nothing is, as long as it's a circle, we're good, right? Whatever you want, no, really, honestly, whatever you want to do. The point is put your creativity somewhere that isn't just utilitarian and in language. It could be dance, your nails, your business is a creative business.
It's coming,
Right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and I think we all need that. We need that to connect to ourselves a little differently, as a practice. You don't have to be a professional.
Yeah, and basically right now we all get a chance to participate in the world's biggest mandala gallery. So you don't have to be like professional, you're still gonna be like famous.
Correct. So yes, please join, because you have a much bigger chance of being famous if you'd like to be, if we're successful. So
yeah, that's true. Awesome. And like
that would be awesome if you wanted to join. The reason obviously is sharing our learning, sharing our experience, sharing our artwork, being seen, getting inspired, participating in a big project, and just doing it, our own way, kind of savvy and spirited way, right? Being smart, being wise, being full of life, and also understanding that there is a place for spirituality and wisdom in everyday life. It's not some special thing, you know, it's just we need the habit to make it automatic and normal and part of who we are.
And that's officially the beginning of the journey. Because
Yes,
it's the
and
first episode.
yes, and I think it's a perfect place to end, at the beginning of the journey. Full circle. We have a beginning and an end.
Sure. Perfect.
All right,
the whole
Sasha.
cycle.
Thank you so much for doing this first podcast with me. I can't wait to do the second one. With that said, the second workshop is out. Go to Savvy and Spirited, go to catalog, go to workshops, and you'll find August's workshop there. All right.
Yeah, I'm already excited.
All right. See you soon. Love you.
Okay. See you. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.